All right, welcome to my TED Talk. This one is going to be on some Kestrel setup, some settings you'll want to keep in mind, and then we'll go into wind and doing things with wind in a realistic fashion. So first things first, I'm going to go back out to the main menu. I'm going to go into System, off screen, and I'm going to go down to, yep, okay, good. If I go into Systems, Compass Calibration. Compass calibration, you'll want to do when you change shooting locations. You want to get away from anything metal, anything that's going to pull the compass internal to this thing off of its, direction. Hit the button and it'll talk you through. You basically just hold it up and then you spin it slowly for 30 seconds and do the little Kestrel dance, and then it's calibrated. Somewhere else in here, I think it is under the target menu, is a latitude. I usually update it on my phone through Bluetooth to get the shooting latitude. We'll talk about why that's important here in a second. And then I'm going to go into, where is it? It's about, no. Oh, yeah, Bluetooth right there. Under the Bluetooth menu, typically I keep this turned off. If you leave it on, that's fine. Put a password on it so that 5 other guys at the match who turn their phones on and start deleting profiles and adding profiles don't fuck with your Kestrel. Typically I have this turned off, but I always have a password on the Bluetooth mode. We'll go back to our ballistic screen here. So first things first is our target. I have calibrated the compass at some point, and I want to capture a target direction. This and the latitude will affect Coriolis. If you're shooting at really long distances, you can come down into ballistics, and we can see how much or how little of a difference that Coriolis makes on the trajectory. Not much right now. I'm going to go back up to target. So to capture a target direction, point the Kestrel at the target, double tap that little red button, and that'll capture the target direction. So 81 degrees now that I did that. So there's my target. There's the yardage. Now I'm going to go into wind. There's a couple different ways to do wind with a Kestrel. This is how I do it. This is how I have found that works for me. I'm going to go into wind direction. I use clock and I update it manually. You can use degrees if you want to, and you can change with the direction of fire. You would do that by setting your direction of fire, capturing it, come into wind direction, and when you go into the capture here, it's going to ask you to point your Kestrel into the wind, and then it will record the direction of the wind and the wind speed for wind 1 and wind 2. I don't do that. I use the clock, like I said, and I update it manually. That's what works for me. You just have to stay on top of it, understand how it works. This is how I have found best works for me. So I'm going to go back here. Wind direction. Right now it's set to 12 o'clock. And this is always going to be reference to my target. My target is always at 12 o'clock. Whatever wind direction the wind is coming from, or whatever direction on the clock that wind is coming from, let's say it's coming from here, so maybe that's a 130 wind, right? If my target is over here, that becomes 12 o'clock, and my wind here becomes now 3 o'clock. It's always referenced my target direction, which is always 12 o'clock. That's how I remember it. That's how it works for me. Wind 1 and wind 2, there's two different speeds. You can put in an average into 1. You can put in a max to 1. You can put in a minimum. Adjust them how you see fit manually, or you can do it through that capture menu. And if I go into either one of these and go down to capture, it's going to say point back of unit into wind for wind direction, wind 1, wind 2, and press the button to start capturing. I don't do that. What I do is I double tap my little backlight button, and that takes me to the weather menu, or the weather screens. This is where I've got all of the stuff for the weather functions in the Kestrel. I always just leave it on wind. And if I go to the right, this is going to get me into a screen where I can see the captured minimum, average, and max. So I'm going to clear that out, and now I'm going to blow at this thing and create some wind. Now I'm going to start it. There we go. So I've stopped it now. Minimum 0, average 2.2, max 4.6. So what I'm going to do with this is, let's say that the wind is averaging 2, but the gusts are up to 4. So I'm going to go double tap my backlight button, go back into ballistics, go into my wind. My wind speed, let's say that's my average, and my gusts were at 4. So I've got, I did that pretty quick. So wind 1 was 2, I'm going to call that my average. Wind 2 was 4 miles an hour. So for the most part, I'm 0.1 right, and if it's a gust, it's 0.2 right, and that's for a 3 o'clock wind. So I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting here. So average is 6 miles an hour, that's 0.35, and my gusts are up to 0.6 right for a target at 419 yards with a 3 o'clock wind. So I could do a bracket. A bracket would give me like a low, let's say a low of 4 and a high of 9. So my max and min is going to be 0.56 right, which I always round up. So 0.6 right to 0.2 left. So 0.2 to 0.6, that's my bracket. So starting out, I'm going to shoot the middle of that bracket, and let's say that's 0.4. So I'll be off 0.2 depending on if the wind is high or low, but 0.4 is a good starting wind hold for that. So those are kind of the basics of how to use it. So now let's use it in a realistic fashion. And we're going to say our wind here is, here's our firing position, and we've got target 1, and we're going to say our wind is coming in from, let's just call it like whatever, 130, right? So this direction right here. So here's our wind, and our wind speed is going to be, let's call it 6 to 10. So kind of windy. So target 1, for simplicity's sake, we're just going to say it's at 419 yards. And our wind, we said, was coming in from 130. And our speed was 6 to 10. So there's my wind. So for target 1, I'm at 0.2 to 0.4 right. That's pretty narrow. I'd probably just shoot this, depending on how often those gusts came. Maybe that gust was 10 miles an hour. Maybe I'll just hold 0.2 to 0.3. So there's my wind hold for target 1. Now, let's add 2 more targets. Again, we'll just say our match director was nice to us and he set these all up at the same distance from us. So let's say we've got target 2 over here at 419 yards and target 3 at 419 yards. So when we did target 1 is at our 12 o'clock. Our target is always at 12. Whichever target we're shooting, that's 12. The wind is relative to that. So target 1, we had at 12 o'clock. Wind was coming from, we called it 130. Now, target 2 is at our 12 o'clock, and our wind is coming from, let's say, 1230. So speeds haven't changed, but our wind direction sure did. So our wind for that target coming from 1230, same speeds, 0.4 or 0.04 to 0.12 right. So we're rounding that. So that's 0 to 0.1 right. Probably just shoot that one straight up. All right, so there's target 2. Now we need to do target 3. Again, target's always at 12 o'clock. This wind looks like it's coming from, let's say, I'm just going to call that straight 3 o'clock. So we'll come back in here to our wind, change our wind to 3 o'clock, go back, and now we've got 0.3 to 0.35 to 0.63 right. So we'll call that 0.4 to 0.6. And again, depending on what those gusts are doing, maybe it's 0.4 to 0.5. Start or hold there, see what happens. Big key takeaways, at least for how I do it. Set that thing to clock, manual update, target that we're shooting at, whichever target it is, that's always 12 o'clock, and our wind is relative to our target. Right? So the wind is relative to our target, whichever target we're shooting at. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.